Okay. I guess people will start to log on. Okay, everybody, I'm going to begin, and I'm sure people will appear as the moment happens. Welcome. You have come to Iraq Britain Business Council's Tech Forum, which a number of you will know all about, that we regularly broadcast this around our big conference, which this month is in the Mansion House and takes place tomorrow. We're very pleased to have some terrific speakers on board. As usual, we talk about tech, but what's interesting to me is that tech is becoming more mainstream in main companies. So, for example, our members like SAP, Sawko, Goodall Group, Sabis, Unihouse, DPD are all using tech in a very widely ranging way. So, in a way, I've seen over the last few years tech become mainstream with all the companies we work for, let alone banks, of course. So good to see tech working, but we like to inform and inspire people, particularly in Iraq or whoever's listening, to look and see what's coming up, what's ahead of the curve, and to maybe embrace things in the future. And we were just talking about leapfrogging technologies, and James was talking about that. And I actually also very much believe that Iraq could be in a leapfrogging situation, putting the latest AI and the latest platforms in place very quickly ahead of a lot of legacy systems. So I would like to look at the idea of legacy systems later, particularly with William and the other entrepreneurs here. But for the moment, I'd really like to introduce James Wallman, who is Chief Executive of the World Experience Organization. I also like to introduce Professor Frank Gunter, who's written a report for us on entrepreneurship in Iraq, and I believe he'll be joining us soon. Raman Salihi from SoftCell, who is delivering entrepreneurial tech services to the pharmaceutical area. Daniel Sawko, who runs ShipShape, which is a very interesting sourcing platform for funds globally, which you can look into. And finally, William Page, who is from 101 and who are our sponsors today. Very pleased about that. 101 are the leading streaming company in Iraq, streaming education and also streaming, particularly entertainment. So that'll be an interesting conversation because we're looking at disrupting existing markets. But without more ado, I'd like to introduce James Wallman to you, who is Chief Executive of World Experience Organization. He also has a company called The Future Is Here. And I understand that James runs a number of companies that look at experience. So James, over to you. I'd love to understand what is about experience and why is it going gangbusters? Why is it so busy at the moment?
Great question. Thanks, Ashley, and thanks for having me. My take is that just as in the 20th century, the big thing that emerged was materialism and consumerism. And they were a response to the success of the first, second, and third industrial revolutions, where they were making a lot of stuff. And what happened was the madmen and women got hold of all this amazing advances in technology that were being created and turned them into meaning for people. So if you take as a really good example, Henry Ford in about 1908, 1909, something like that, said that once a man bought one of his cars, because it was a man in those days, he would never have to buy another one. That is the statement of an engineer who has just won the industrial revolutions of making really good stuff. But then what happened in the early 1920s with a guy called Alfred Sloan was at General Motors, and he started changing the cars with like the fashion seasons in fashion. And what happened in the 20s was Alfred Sloan and a whole bunch of other people in the government in the United States, but also, like I say, the advertising people and the design people took products that people bought and just used and turned them into products that people used up. Just to be clear, it's not the first time it came about. I mean, there's old history in terms of Louis XIV and the emergence of the season for a thing. But crucially, this was the first time it was available to the masses. And so what happened is you had this rise of a new value system of materialism for the masses. And what that did was led to this incredible rise of standards of living. If you think about what life was like for most people in the 1920s, most people were super poor, right? Just about getting by. And now we've got this huge rise of standards of living. And this is why I think the experience economy.
Hello, James. I think you've frozen. Aha. Hello, James.
Exciting country because
James,
just as material.
James, we just missed that bit because you froze.
Is it back?
The experience economy you're about to tell us.
Oh, okay. Is it back?
No, yeah, you're back.
My apologies. Okay, so I think just as materialism and the consumer revolution transformed standards of living, so I think the experientialism and the experience economy will transform quality of life in this century. We'll take hold of the magic that's happening in the tech sector, make meaning for people, and make better lives for people.
Very interesting. So what does WXO do then, and how does it work?
Great question. Question I get asked a few times. So the WXO is trying to be a catalyst for this experience revolution. Just as in the 1920s, there were lots of organizations that started that helped people connect ideas around the world and across different sectors. We're doing that. So the WXO opened in 2020, just 5 years ago. We're now 1,062 members, but 1,000 members in 44 countries. And what we do is we connect companies, a bit like what you do, Ashley, here, but we connect companies that are working on figuring out how to make better experiences that make people feel more alive, that create community, that are, they're bad for loneliness and therefore good for people, good for well-being, and make money so they can repeat it, duplicate it, scale it, and do it for more people. And you can also do it as good for planet and society as well. But first up, let's make it good for individuals, making money for the entrepreneurs. And so we're connecting like people in Singapore, people in Shanghai, people in San Francisco, people in Helsinki to work out, oh, you do it really well here. How can we do that really well here as well?
Is there a dynamic about smart cities in this? Is that part of the way how you can go forward to create a better experience?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And smart cities as a way of, essentially, my understanding, that concept is how do we get lots of data and use that data to make life better for people and for things to run more smoothly. So in terms of, it could be smart cities, smart homes, smart hospitals, smart businesses, actually. You think about what digitalization of data has done for industries. It's made it quicker and simpler and easier to get data on what works, what doesn't work, and make it better again. So absolutely, smart cities is a really good example.
There's an efficiency element to this, obviously getting data together so people make better experiences. But actually, what about the actual physical, emotional experience people can get? Do you go right up to the entertainment side of this to make a city a living entertainment as much as it is a data thing?
You picked up on that really nicely, Ashley. Thank you. You're right. This is, and I may have swung a bit too far that way. This is less about efficiency and much more about effectiveness. And if you think about effectiveness for people, it's, I don't know how your weekend was, but if you see your child on a swing, or if you go to a party and hang out with friends or family, or you watch your sports team win, or you hear a band that really is meaningful for you, it's hard to measure. I had this conversation once with Richard Thaler, who wrote the book Punch, and we were talking about the magic of measuring happiness. And he turned to me and he said, look, James, I've been arguing with Danny about this for 30 years. And that's Danny as in Daniel Kahneman, because Richard's a bit better connected than I am. And he said, look, you can measure widgets, but you can't measure utils. And I've got to tell you, it took me a little bit of a while to work out what he was talking about, but utils as in utilitarianism, as in well-being, as in happiness, and widgets as in just stuff you churn out. So happiness is much harder to measure, but actually, of course, what's happened since that guy Fitoussi in France in 2009, but the move to measure well-being has become a thing that's accepted much more nowadays. If you measure, the plural of anecdote is data, the plural of subjective ways of measuring well-being can be done by city governments, by national governments. And we can architect people's moments. And that's what the WXO tries to do. We connect people who design Monday mornings, Tuesday lunchtimes, Thursday evenings, weekends. So yes, entertainment's important because I want to be entertained. I want to be happy, but I also want challenge. So Yeah, we've got members who are at Disney. We've got members who are Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia. We've got members who are at Ernst and Young. Who, you know, we've got so if you think about, if you could design a really good Disney experience, a theme park day out experience, or you can design a really good immersive theater experience, or a really good brand activation. You can design a really good employee experience. You can think about how a town square should look and feel. A lot of this is quite organic, some really interesting work coming from architecture, but this is the interesting thing about the experience economy, is nobody's coming from that background. They're coming from architecture, from game design, from you know, all sorts of areas. So it's a really interesting area where people are bringing together new different ideas, or actually maybe sometimes the old ideas, to think about the psychological design of things to make it better for people.
And I understand, I used to work for a company called Fitch who did customer experience and things like that. And for example, to what extent are you mashing up new areas to create new experiences? So if you're bringing together Disney with a data company, or with, you know, E&Y, or whatever it is, or SAP, how are you convening different forms of experience?
I know Fitch. I presented for them up in Paddington in London a while back, and was talking to someone called Aaron Shields from there recently, actually, as landor as it is now, I guess. And I would say that Disney are already doing it. I think if you're trying to design a better experience for someone and you're not using data, what are you doing? And the data, just to be clear, can be as complex as, you know, you can measure heartbeats nowadays. Some really interesting work coming from the neuroscientists looking at measuring oxytocin levels and stuff. But you could also, I mean, not quite a clapometer, but one of our members who does scare attractions, when he was building something, he would sit outside the exit and watch people as they came out. And he kept making tweaks and changes until people were coming out clapping and just giggling. And so you can do it, you know, you can observe people and get a feeling if something's right, but or you can use, you know, digital data, lots of ways of doing it.
So James, I think of WXO as a bit like a sort of big larder for experience companies, where you could go in, you can pull out different people doing different things and come up with, you know, city experiences, national experiences, company experiences. Is that a reasonable analogy?
Yeah, it's nice. One of our members just launched something last week in Las Vegas, a chap who lives in LA actually, and he worked with one of our members in Bristol in the UK, another member who works in Sheffield, and I think he'd been working with another one in Singapore on this crazy digital piece of I can't really explain it. This crazy dance party digital piece of super fun architecture. But yeah, our members collaborate across borders, you know, thanks to the magic of Microsoft Teams and Zoom, you know. But yeah, it's a larder of amazing people, strange, interesting, curious people that want to make different experiences, and they borrow some, you know, some are narrative designers, some are product creators, some are, you know, much more from the kind of creative neuroscience point of view. If you put those people together, you get this really interesting teams of creators, and the business people too. It's worth saying investors too, because it's important to work out, you need a business model to make it work.
That's how the Industrial Revolution kicked off in Birmingham, putting the people together in these clubs. Just also to say, I believe you're working with London. Is someone working on London at the moment? Could you shed some light on what's happening there?
Well, the interesting thing about London is that the Mayor's Office recently released a report called the London Growth Plan. And it's the first time that a government has said specifically that the success and their future success relies on the experience and the experience economy. So in this report specifically, they called out 5 different things, and one of them was the experience economy, and says the future of London in terms of the financial and the social success of London, experience economy is at the heart of that for a bunch of reasons. One, it's why people come to London. It's not a cookie cutter place, it's different. People will come to London and have their own experiences. But also, one of the weird, interesting things about the experience economy is it's really good for society, because when you think about the employee experience, the people who work for you, there's research that shows, it's from that what's his name, at Warwick University, that shows that happier employees are something like 14% more productive. So if you look after your employees, they'll do better work. The other thing they'll do is, because most organizations have frontline people who deal with the other people, happier employees make happier customers. Happier customers means a better net promoter score, a repeat purchase, etc. So if you look after your people, they're going to be happier. Guess what they're going to do when they go home? They're going to be happier too. So the weird magical thing about the experience economy is there's money here. There's a lot of money to be made in the experience economy, and it's good for society. So it's the kind of thing that you should have as a bottom line in your business, because it will make your company more successful. And at the same time, it gives you that little glow in your heart where you go back to your husband or wife or partner or children and think, I'm doing something that's good for the world as well.
James, I love this, and I think it's great. And I would say, this is something maybe that in Iraq, they've reached a sort of level of stability, of prosperity now, that where they can start to think about how you're going to position Baghdad, what's happening in Erbil, how you're going to make Basra a livable city. All these thoughts, I think, can start to percolate across an area that hasn't perhaps thought about it up to now. Any thoughts on Iraq at all, specifically?
That's really, what you say is really exciting. As you stability first, right? You need stability because then you can have a civil society and business can work. One of our members has been doing some work in Erbil, actually. He's an American guy who's based often in Europe, and he was using gaming devices and using experience design to I think help create a better society. Because if you think about society anyway, and think about cities, there's an argument that says that cities are, alongside religion, I guess, the original experience economy. Because what you do when a city comes together, or maybe it's the village, is you have people connect with other people. And once people connect with other people, they can either do it in an aggressive, unpleasant way, or they can do it in a way that kind of bounces around each other. And I want to come back to this in terms of why experiences are so powerful for people. Experiences is essentially a story, right? So when you have an experience, you have a story. When you share a story with somebody else, there's something that happens in their brain that's it's called mirror neurons. And mirror neurons means the same thing's ticking over in their head that's ticking over in your head. That is a physical manifestation of empathy at a really deep level. Empathy leads to connection. Connection leads to relationships. Relationships leads to happiness, resilience, etc. So if you can design a city where people talk to each other, people connect with each other. I'm thinking about some of the problems with sort of super efficient, use the word earlier, actually super efficient kind of Western systems. You don't need to go that far. It's good to have a market. It's good to have public squares. When you get people to connect with each other in that way and talk to each other, you create a better society. And it's one of the huge problems. There's some brilliant work in The Atlantic, the American magazine recently, about the loneliness problem and what that's doing for politics. Particularly, this is focused on the United States. But the problem with work from home, shop from home, and this kind of atomized thing that we have in an efficient society with amazing televisions at home, etc., is that people don't talk to their neighbors. So when you design society, when you design the city, when you design the way that things work, you need to get people out of their homes into connecting with other people, because it's okay to disagree. It's okay that, you may be, I don't know, you might believe in Brexit and I don't believe in Brexit, or the other way around. It doesn't matter when we realize that you, just like me, have a family, have people you love, people that you don't like so much, and that's okay. And so actually one of the learnings I think that we're getting from the wild, brilliant success of consumer-driven capitalism is that efficiency loses some of the magic of what it is to be human. So the magic of where, people creating society in Iraq are, is let's not let go of the magic of the human as we speed towards this kind of consumer-driven society. Let's keep the magic of, and this is where experience design, I feel, comes in, because it's thinking about the psychology, not just the economics.
Thank you, James. And just to bookend that with the thought that obviously Iraq, the Mesopotamia, Ur, the cradle of civilization, the Garden of Eden, if you like. That's got a great history. And as a historian, you'll understand that element that could be somehow projected forward. I don't know, or included in an experience in Iraq, just to put it out there.
Oh, look, that history is just set, the way that AR things are bringing history to life. And I see one of our members is Egyptian, and she's doing something called the Festival of the Queens, about the female pharaohs and the leaders that were there. And this kind of celebration of the past, I think, is really powerful. And it's a great point that you make. The Tigris and the Euphrates are where we come from, right? It's where our civilization began. So that knowledge is, why not build another new Garden of Eden there right now? That's perfectly possible. And I think with the experience economy.
James, thank you very much. And you're open for companies to join you in WXO and to enrich their experiences.
Yeah, and just to say on that front, if anybody does reach out and wants to join from Iraq, then we will, we're trying to make it positive for, not everyone is in a first world, super rich, wealthy country. And so if somebody wants to join, is currently going through difficulties, but is going to add to the community, then we can look at some kind of reduction or something. So I suspect that isn't the case, super successful country, but I want to be really open about that, because we have members in, 44 different countries, those in Africa, for example, sometimes, or those guys in Mexico, they're like, look, we got pesos, we don't have US dollars. So I just want to be open about that, because we're trying to build a world experience organization to help people share ideas to make better experiences for everybody.
James, thank you so much. And with that bombshell, I'd like to now go to Professor Frank Gunter from the other side of the world in America. Frank, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Absolutely. Can't see you, but I can hear you. And look forward to hearing, I understand you have a report you've written for IBBC on entrepreneurship in Iraq.
Yes, I apologize for joining late and not hearing all of James's presentation. I had to delete and then download a new version of Teams. The change in technology is impacting the environment for entrepreneurship, and vice versa. The changing environment is creating opportunities for technology that didn't exist before. Ashley, you gave me 5 minutes, so I'll try to stick to that. First of all, the good news, the violence is down significantly. In fact, the British government recognized this by relaxing the standards for its own people to travel in Iraq and do business there. And also corruption is also down. I spent, in February, I spent a couple of days with a former student just wandering the streets of Baghdad. And it was interesting to see the vigorous retail and service businesses going on. Unfortunately, the average number. What are the challenges facing Iraq's entrepreneurial environment and potential for technology to resolve those challenges? First, as always, is finance. Finance, first of all, in the services area, the financial services, being able to do financial transactions. There is some good news there. Ahmed Tabakchali, in last month's report, noted that there has been a substantial increase in the use of e-wallet, debit, credit, and prepaid cards. In December of 2024, it was almost 3,000 billion Iraqi dinars worth of transactions. That is a huge increase from even 2 years ago. On the other side of finance is the ability of the entrepreneurial firms to get finance, and that is still very limited. If surveys of entrepreneurs in Iraq show that the fundamental best source of funding is borrow it from your relatives. The banking system has said, and we shouldn't be surprised. The CBI reported that over 90% of the currency in Iraq is not in banks. It's in individual households. It's in kitchens. So finance first. Secondly, education. There was great progress being made in reducing illiteracy in Iraq. That came to an end in 2014 with the rise of ISIS. Since 2017, since the defeat of ISIS, Some progress has been made there, but the level of illiteracy, especially among rural women, is still excessively high. Some progress has been made in the skill training, moving away from teaching what the teachers are comfortable with and teaching what is actually demanded by the market. Entrepreneurial training is, you've been to the station, you've been to the various entrepreneurial incubators. It's interesting to note that the number one characteristic about whether someone will be an entrepreneur in Iraq is whether their parents were entrepreneurs. So we could do a better job of providing the education that the successful entrepreneurs are getting from their families. Infrastructure, all I have to do is say the word and then I can stop. Electricity, despite the funds being spent for 20 years, there is still not 24/7 electricity, even in some of the urban areas. And then finally, the regulatory environment. This is one of the themes of the report I'm writing on entrepreneurship. The IBBC report of last year, Is Iraq Business Ready?, referenced a World Bank study, and the World Bank looked at 50 nations around the world. 16 of those nations are roughly at the same level of economic development and income as Iraq. And 22 of those nations are at much lower level of economic development and income. Comparing Iraq to the other countries in the study, Iraq is in last place, 16th out of 16, when it comes to countries that have the same level of economic development. And even when you include the 22 countries, some of them are desperately poor countries around the world, Iraq is 45th out of 50. The regulatory system is an illegitimate child of Saddam, and to a great extent, it has not been revised, it has not been improved, and it is a major barrier to the entrepreneurship. Sure. I'm sorry, you were saying, Ashley.
No, I didn't say it was someone had their microphone on, that was all.
Oh, okay.
Do carry on, Frank.
Yes. So one issue that you and I have discussed before is that the technological progress that's been made to a great extent has been communications, games, e-commerce, and the direct effect on the Iraqi economy is not strong. One can think of the use of AI for manufacturing, small-scale light manufacturing, the use of AI in agriculture, for government procurement. And this is either hasn't begun or it's still in its infancy. So I think I ran over, Ashley, but that is the key points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. I think there's quite a few obstacles, but there's slow progress being made. Now, I'm interested because also the other issue is that anyone who's got a lot of education will go for a government job, and the government's crowded out the entrepreneurial private sector to an extent. Do you think things will begin? Do you think they need more education about becoming an entrepreneur, about becoming independent business, rather than necessarily taking a safe job with government? Is that also another issue?
Well, I was between 2014 with the rise of ISIS and the collapse of oil prices. For the first time, the government of Iraq had to recognize that it could no longer be the employer of first resort. It could no longer provide jobs for everybody who graduates from university, which has been a policy going back to the 1980s. Unfortunately, they had the white paper come out from the government of Iraq. The IBBC published its Country at the Crossroads, both of them discussing major, significant, fundamental changes in the economy. Unfortunately, oil prices went up to $120 a barrel in 2022, and all of a sudden, all these great plans for revising the economy came to an end, and the government announced that it was going to increase government hiring. Right now, oil price, what was the price of Brent blend yesterday? $64 and a few pennies. If the government recognizes that oil prices are going to be, I expect the oil prices are going to be in the $60 range for the next decade, then they cannot create enough government jobs to keep the number of unemployed and underemployed young people, especially young men, from growing. So to an extent, they don't have a choice. They don't have the option any longer of government hiring. So now the educational system, sure, the status is having your child be a doctor. Sure, the status is having your child be a government official. But what the entrepreneurial sector needs is the STEM. It needs the science, technology, electronics, etc. And that's where the universities and the higher education ought to shift. And was it last month that they had the graduation of the first class from the American University of Baghdad? And looking at their majors, looking at the choice of majors, I think that's optimistic, because the majors that their students are focusing on are not oriented towards getting a government job, but are oriented towards maybe starting their own business, or at least starting in the private sector. Ashley, a long answer to a short question.
Thank you very much. And just finally, the role of freelancers. Do you have any data on that? How many people are freelance in Iraq? Because in some senses, and I think Raman might be able to back this up, is that people can freelance whilst developing their own businesses quite often. Is there any sense of that as a hedging way of developing businesses?
The challenge with the data is that with the folks that identify themselves as being entrepreneurs, some of them are entrepreneurs because they are voluntary entrepreneurs. They want to establish their own business. I sat down at a table in the station, and it was very exciting to talk to these young people who are focused on starting their own businesses. But a lot of the small businesses, the small medium enterprises, who sometimes identify themselves as entrepreneurs, are there from necessity. I was talking to a young man who was selling movies, and I said, "You have quite a business going here," and he made it quite clear that it was temporary, that he has had an uncle that was going to get a government job for him, and that would be a real job. And he would immediately abandon his, he actually had an employee. He was immediately going to abandon his movie business to get the government job. You talk to the uncles, you talk to the mothers, you talk to the fathers. That's what they want their children. It's a well-paid job. You don't have to work very hard. You can't be fired, and it has a good pension. And that means that is going to be a constraint on the people choosing entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think that's difficult. Just finally, a bit of advice. What could be done to encourage entrepreneurship? Is it simply educating people to think about it more? Is it providing the tech and opportunities for them in some way?
I think what we need is interesting, exciting stories. And I was thinking about this when James was giving his presentation. He talked about people walking out of the building. If we have interesting, exciting stories that this young man from Erbil has done this, that this young woman from Basra has done this, I think that would be an important thing, that they would see people like themselves becoming successful.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I know you're doing a proper report on this in our conference tomorrow. So anyone needs to find out. We'll also be publishing your report online. Is that correct?
You're an optimist. It is not quite finished, but it will be posted on the IBBC as soon as it's complete.
Okay, yes, so we had a prequel. Thank you very much, Frank, and sorry to get you up so early in America. Talking of entrepreneurs and people that are in some ways the techie and a little bit freelance and entrepreneurial, Raman Salihi. Hello, Raman. Are you here? From
yes,
SoftCell. Very good to see you. I guess you're an example of an Iraqi who is doing all the right things and doing the entrepreneurship. Love to hear about your business and how you got to do it and what you're doing to develop it in yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, sure. I just want to add something to Professor Frank's comment about the employment at the government thing, because I recruit in Iraq, and that's one thing we do. We want, like, we could really outsource our work to Eastern Europe developers or Central Asia or Asian countries, but we prefer to contribute to the country itself. It's very hard to find talent here, and not because of technical inability. People here in Iraq, I think they're generally smart. it's an attitude problem. They would rather work less and make less than work a little bit more and earn twice as much as they do at the government job they have. And I have staff leaving the opportunity to become a team lead, a managerial position soon for a government job, which pays drastically less than what I pay them, just because of that security of the future. It's mostly an attitude thing. So we try on our end to change that. Like people that we recruit, we talk, like our recruitment cycle is mostly about how they should consider this job as a real job as well. It's not that temporary job you take on, you know? So
yeah. So you are recruiting, you're active recruiting developers in Iraq for the work you do. And I think also in our warm-up, we were talking to one of the education companies, I think it was UniHouse, and they were saying similarly, they actively use Iraqi talent to create this. But actually the model is also that they're freelancers and that they can also work while they're developing their own businesses on the side. Is that part of the deal with working with you?
No, not really. It's like a full committed, job. You have to commit yourself to it. It's you have to make the investment, the effort to stay in the company for 5-10 years. It's like being a doctor. You can't be a medical, practicer for 2 years, 3 years. It's a lifelong journey. Okay. Something similar. Yeah, it's not just developers. All sorts of positions. People are like, I'm sorry to say this, but I think the general theme is that people are lazier and they prefer to work less, finish at 12 or 1 p.m. and have the rest of the day to sleep or play games.
Okay, well, that's their experience economy, I guess. But Raman, I'd love to hear technically what you're up to with SoftCell, who the clients are, what you're doing, why it's different, and the future.
Sure. In a nutshell, what we do is help through consultancy our clients in the pharmaceutical industry to be more productive, more efficient, more data-driven. As you may already know, the pharmaceutical industry is worldwide one of the most regulated environments, and things have to be tight. You have to comply very well, which is not the case in Iraq. It's a mess. Long story short, it's a mess in every aspect: financials, data, storage, forecasting, demand, supply chain management, all of these things. We're trying to make a change in this industry, make it less messy, as I mentioned last time we met, to attract better names and bigger names around the world. They come to Iraq and see how the pharmaceutical industry, the business and the relationships, the B2B relationships are in Iraq. They're discouraged. We want to change that, and we do this through giving them solutions, technical solutions that makes this easier for them. And our clients so far have loved it, and I have hope, because part of the regulations that are happening now, like new regulations are coming out that is trying to make the pharmaceutical market a more proper market. The CBI is imposing better restrictions on cash flow. The Ministry of Health imposing better quality checks. So these, combined with our efforts, I think gives me hope that someday we will have a much better, a much more efficiently run pharmaceutical industry in Iraq.
So just to understand it, your platform enables big drug companies to distribute and manage supply and demand in Iraq across the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
Is that right? And how many kind of pharmacies, do the pharmacies sign up to you to get access to those proper drugs?
We're not doing the sales here, so we're not the e-commerce or commerce channel. We're just the solution. We have pharmacies around Iraq signing up. We have drugstores called warehouse. Drugstores are warehouses that act as intermediaries. We have distributors. These three, the entire supply chain on our system. You're just happier if the pharmacies that sell your drug is using a proper system, right? Something that takes care of your expiry, or making sure you don't prescribe two things that collide, and sometimes two molecules can't go together. So it's these things, these little details that matter. And
okay.
On another side.
So they get a kind of dashboard they can manage the product through. Is that right?
It's like automate a lot of things, make the industry, make less errors, basically run more efficiently. We have a lot of manual work in this industry, a lot of manual work. We are trying to, we're reducing costs for our clients by automating stuff for them, which means that they will have better margins, which means they will be more comfortable with, maybe providing a better quality. It's all linked in. I mean, it's
as I understand it, a lot of the pharmaceutical companies are nervous about Iraq because there's a lot of fake drugs and things, and it's undermining the market, the counterfeits, all that going on. But actually, what you can do is formalize good channels to
For example, sometimes one of them, I will give an example of how our system mitigates this. Most of the available systems in the country now lets you play with the quantities on hand in the system, or the purchase price, sell items that are not actually registered in the system. We don't allow this on the system. So that means your vendors will trust your reports that you give back to them if you use this. Like we back our system, and our brand will hopefully soon mean that the pharmacies are transparent with you. So and we hope that the vendors will promote our system, like they will be asking the pharmacies and the warehouses to use it, so that they are make sure that it's run properly.
So you're creating confidence in the market effectively, which is something Iraq really needs. And I know that there are big pharma companies who would consider Iraq if they had a better system, which hopefully you're providing.
Definitely.
And we have a new member called Halion coming in. So I hope you can link up with them at some stage. They have a lot of their ex-GXK entity. So they will be helping them in Iraq, I think.
Definitely. Because, I mean, needless to say, I mean, everybody knows that Iraq is the second largest country in the Middle East, like after Egypt. So definitely these big companies want to operate in Iraq, but there's a reason that they don't. We're trying to solve that for them. That's it in a nutshell.
And a quick question. I know you're beavering and looking at the pharmaceutical industry, but the application of your platform, could it go into any other form of distribution in the system that might need the same kind of surety?
Sure, we're looking at not at the moment, because the problem we're tackling is big enough. But probably in the future we can have other verticals, maybe FMCG, maybe wherever other forms of retail that Iraq is going through. But we are looking to also, after this, go into hospitals. They complete the pharmaceutical, chain. So we'll see. We will see what problems there are, and hopefully we solve them, or someone else comes and solves this challenge as well.
Raman, thank you very much indeed, and good luck with SoftCell, who of course are a pop band in Britain.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'd like to now go on to another entrepreneur, Daniel Sawko. Daniel, hello, are you here?
Hi, actually, yes, yeah.
Great to hear from you. Daniel runs ShipShape, and again, he's an entrepreneur, but has got an interesting angle. He provides a service to entrepreneurs, which anyone listening about investment could find this pretty alluring. So, Daniel, over to you.
Thanks very much, Ashley, and yeah, nice to meet you all. So yeah, by way of background, I was working in a previous company where I was essentially reporting into the founder, and the founder wanted me to go find which investors we should be speaking with about our investment round. And I quickly discovered that actually there are lots of investor lists out there, and there are also lots of paid for solutions out there too. But actually, for most of the time, if you're a founder in a business and you want to identify which investors you should be speaking with, you usually don't have $25,000 to go and throw away on a very expensive system. And so what we've essentially done at ShipShape is we've created the world's first free-to-use investment search engine that enables founders for free to go and identify which funds around the world they should be speaking with. Ashley?
Could you say that again? It's so good.
So yeah, we've basically created the world's first free-to-use investment search engine, so that founders, wherever they are in the world, can go and speak with whichever funds specialize in funding technologies like that. So actually, I'm going to quickly put in just if there are founders here that want to connect on LinkedIn, I'll just put something in the chat. I'll also do a quick bit of screen sharing. So actually, please let me know if this comes through. Okay, I realize that connectivity has been sort of.
Yeah, it's all there.
Cool. Excellent.
Costanoa. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So the way the search engine works is it takes how much capital it is that you as a founder want to raise, and you can then type in a particular technology or domain in which your company is building. So actually, we can maybe look at pharmacy quality control, for example. And what the search engine will do is it will look at different funds from around the world that actively invest in companies that are related to investment in sort of pharmacy supply chains, for example. And then what that enables founders to do is to look at the funds. They can see who they potentially want to go and speak with, and they then can export the contact information of the investors at each individual fund. And the aim here really is to enable founders, again, wherever they are in the world, to know who they should be speaking with, because actually there are some specialist investors in the domain in which they're building, basically. And yeah, Raman, sorry, I kind of picked on you, but yeah, like that's essentially what you can do here. And then yeah, you can create shortlists of the investors. We'll also include the publicly available contact information for those. You can export that contact information. You can run it through your own outreach CRM. We've actually already used this for ourselves to raise for us. So one of our investors we actually found through this. But the idea here really is human capital is much more evenly distributed than access to financial capital. How do we essentially enable and empower founders and entrepreneurs in different markets to be able to tap into that? Because capital is also happy to move globally for good opportunities. It's sometimes complicated, but ultimately, if you've got a fund that's focused on a particular domain, you want to find the best ideas from that domain rather than being restricted necessarily to just one region. So that's just I suppose a little bit of background actually in terms of what it is that we're building, what the mission is, and ultimately, hopefully it's useful to some of the founders in the room.
It's a fantastic service. And how do you make your money?
So through a combination of advertising and then also government to business and business to business marketing. So for example, let's say that you're an Iraqi business and you're looking to enter into the EU market. There's actually, so we actually have as a customer, the government of Estonia, who offers something called e-residency, which enables you to very quickly register your business with an EU address to then sell into the EU market. So what we like doing is working with partners who are actually going to offer something of value to the companies that are using this. So only companies that have said that they want to expand into the EU would ever receive any type of information about that product that the Estonian government offers.
Great. So you're really qualifying opportunities for people. In terms of Iraq, would you be interested in companies to sign up? Would you be interested in investors to sign up? What might be of interest to you?
So we don't need investors to sign up because the search engine is essentially self-learning. So it scours the web constantly for new funds. So we actually don't need any investors to tell us that they exist. If they've got press releases out there on the web, we'll find them. And then we'll be able to incorporate information about that fund into the search engine. But from a founder perspective, yeah, we're actually, as of a couple of weeks ago when we spoke, we actually didn't have any founders at that point in time from Iraq. We've got founders from over 100 countries globally that have used the search engine. We've got just over 5,000 companies that have used us to date. But yeah, thus far, none in Iraq. So if you want to be the first Iraqi company to use this, please do go and sign up. And yeah, what we'll also then be looking to do in future is to work with organizations such as the IBBC to basically provide information on what we see that's happening in the Iraqi ecosystem to be able to better inform things like government policy in terms of encouraging and accelerating the development of probably one of the most promising economies in the Middle East.
So actually, you could inform Frank on information, for example, on update on entrepreneurship, which would be great. Just also the use of AI. I mean, this self-learning thing, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? And I guess as you're doing that, it crossed my mind that we talked about leapfrogging how things are currently done with legacy systems. If you've got an AI system, presumably that's constantly updating and is possibly quicker and faster than anything existing. How does that contrast work with the legacies and what you're doing?
So yeah, there are quite a lot of legacy systems out there, and they're all very old type, like sort of database style of managing information. So very often they have employed teams of hundreds of people who are just cold calling funds to try and find out updated information. And that's then incurring a massive cost, which then has to be covered somewhere. Whereas what we've got with the models that we've trained and are constantly retraining is essentially the ability to pick that up for free, and we can pass on that tremendous cost saving down to the user to make sure that, yes, they can use it for free, and the information that's in here has been collected relatively inexpensively after the capital investment from us in terms of building out the technology and the logic that then enables the search engine to know where to look and what information to provide back that's relevant to the user. So yeah, I suppose there is a clear case of leapfrogging here. We actually started this pre-LLM world, so pre like a chat GPT. We actually have trained some of our own models, but we're increasingly adopting sort of off the shelf, but very but also like training our own models and continuing to refine our own models to do that. And yeah, I think that there's a huge leapfrog opportunity in terms of specialized access to information, which it's not cheap to go and build it yourself, even with LLMs, but it's much cheaper than the old model of doing this. And I think the opportunity for founders around the world to quickly build, especially software, like those barriers to entry have come massively down. I still think that there are other significant areas where AI is not going to solve for all of it. So think about like marketing and distribution and human relationships, where humans are still today holding the purse strings. These areas are still going to be relatively capital intensive. But ultimately, yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity, one for leapfrogging, but also two, that there's lowering of the barriers for entry is really exciting. It means that founders anywhere can access almost a world of information. And if they do it right, they can build a fantastic product.
It's terrific. So Daniel, how can people get hold of you? What is the website and everything that they need to log on to immediately?
So I've actually popped it into the chat already. So there should be in the group chat. So you've got my LinkedIn profile, so feel free to reach out. And if you've got any questions, really happy to answer them. And likewise, there's also a link to the search engine there as well.
Fantastic. Really interesting, Daniel. Thank you very much indeed. It's nice to get a glimpse of the future and the current existing world that we live in. The experience economy is getting better for people looking for investment, I think, right to say, isn't it? Okay, now going on to William. William, are you here? Mr. William Page from 1001.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can't see you yet, but I'm looking forward to absolutely.
Okay, can you see me now?
Can't see you, William. Yes, fantastic.
No worries. Yeah, hi everyone.
Just to introduce you, William Page, who's one of our sponsors today, which is great, 1001. Great streaming platform, the leading one in Iraq for entertainment and other things. William, love to hear about where you've got to, how things are evolving. We also touched on disrupting other platforms and where you're going in the future. I'm happy to let you just talk because it's so interesting.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, good to see you again. Good to see so many familiar faces. Professor Gunter, good to see you as well. I just got in from the Middle East, so apologies, I'm a little bit jet lagged, but good to be here. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see the slides?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got 4 key updates, and funnily enough, they nearly all actually cover points that Professor Gunter has raised. So it's good timing. So what I'm just going to quickly do is just spend 2 minutes just quickly talking about who we are for those who've not heard of us, and then I'm going to really do a deep dive into those 4 points so that we can focus on and maybe have some questions and discussions around those points. So for those who don't know who we are, 1001 is Iraq's leading streaming platform. We're hyper-localized, cost-efficient platform for the Iraqi market, focused on providing the best local content, predominantly from our partner Al Shaqia, but also from other broadcasters as well, plus leading regional broadcasters. Look, Iraq is a huge potential market. Unfortunately, it's been rife with piracy, but there is a real need, given the young population, given the digital savvy nature of that population, to potentially provide a platform and a service that can really connect with the youth and can help them to access great local and international content. So that's why we're rather unusual that we've partnered with leading international platforms like OSN, Stars Play, and Todd, who have Premier League, have Champions League, UEFA, and we've also partnered with La Liga directly to provide great local content and great international content through one subscription. So yeah, we've grown. We've got millions of people who've downloaded the app, and we've done great partnerships with telcos and with ISPs, 5 leading ISPs now, telcos. We're partnering with consumer brands, payments. So we're really keen to work with partners across the Iraqi market and even outside of Iraq as well. So that's kind of the background as to who we are and our growth and where we are today. I've got 4 key updates that I'd like to give everyone on this call. First update is in relation to developments in piracy, and this really builds on what Professor Gunter quite rightly was pointing out. Iraq has to date been a market that's been dominated by, frankly, corporate piracy. A lot of ISPs have provided illegal platforms at no costs to the users, and that's meant that there's been this acceptance or normality of not paying for content. Now, why is this important? Well, directly relating to what the professor mentioned, by paying for content, by paying for content and helping people to understand that, what happens is that actually leads to a flow of income and revenues, which goes towards content makers. So it helps to make greater content in Iraq, helps to employ more people, helps to create more storytellers in the way that has been previously discussed, and really helps to bring about a better international reputation for the Iraqi diaspora and Iraq as a country. So this year, there's been a real shift in this narrative. International platforms have really been lobbying the government very hard, and a number of ISPs led by SoftCell, Al Jazeera, FiberX, and Al Hayat and Noor Al Bidayah have really embraced content, legal streaming, and they set up an Iraq Without Piracy Summit, which was attended by the minister herself, Minister of Communications. And there's been a number of meetings. And what we're seeing is we are seeing a shift towards legal streaming. And this is important because this will create jobs. This will create a stronger narrative and storytelling economy, and hopefully will be a real positive driver in the Iraqi creative sector. So, there still is an issue with piracy, but if the government enforces some of the regulations that do exist, we can see Iraq very quickly emerge as the second most powerful and important media player in the whole MENA region, behind only Saudi Arabia. So, there's been a lot of movement in the last 6 months, and we anticipate this to continue to grow. Second major update I also want to give, and it's touched upon some of the themes that I think every speaker has actually said today. We're really focusing on education and training for our own staff and for our users, and I'll break this into 2 categories. We're working with Udemy Business and have launched a training scheme for all our staff. So every single member of our team, whether they're an engineer, they're in marketing, sales, whether they're in operations, product, you name it, every single member of our team, which is nearly entirely based in Iraq, can access over 15,000 courses from Udemy Business on whatever subject that they want. Their line manager is also developing a career development path, learning and development path for each individual so that they can grow and they can develop. And I think this is really important for the development of entrepreneurs. We're very, very clear when I interview people joining the company. I say, what do you want to do in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time? And if they say they want to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, fantastic. This is music to my ears. We want to help you. We want to give you the skills to do that. And I don't know if this is that common in the Iraqi market, and we're really proud of this. This is supplemented by learning and development from the co-founders, myself, Ahmed Ashakla, Mohsen Garcia. We all try to provide training. Other leaders in the group provide training, and we're really focused on this because we think that it's important, if people are going to get jobs outside of the government sector, as Frank pointed out is needed, that they have the skills and the abilities to do that. That supplements for the users. We've partnered with Our Mentor, which is a leading educational training business. So we are aiming to also provide some of these courses in our subscription for the general public. So I think education and training in Iraq is critical for our own staff, but also for the public. So I just kind of wanted to give that update, and it's something I encourage every Iraqi business to do, because if you can train and look after your staff, they're happier, they're more productive, and fundamentally they're the future leaders of Iraq, and that's what we need more of. Third major update is a really interesting one, actually. I'm not sure if people saw in the news, but this year Iraq had a pavilion at the Cannes Film Festival. Now, for those who are not in media, Cannes Film Festival market is the biggest market in the world, and Iraq has never had, at least I don't think it's ever had, a pavilion. And every country has a pavilion there, like a tent. So it's really important for your prestige, for your creative economy, that you've got a presence there. And we're proud to say that we sponsored the pavilion this year, along with the Baghdad Film Institute and with IDB, another partner of ours, where there was an opportunity for filmmakers, Iraqi filmmakers, young talented individuals, and older statesmen to talk about Iraqi film, classic and new film, and to really talk about Iraqi storytelling. And from Mesopotamia to Cannes, it's a good summary. And this is a panel that was held on Lama Shamal, which is one of our productions. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're focused on hyper-localization, hyper-localized content, and I think it's a really good thing for the reputation of Iraq and for, frankly, the youth of Iraq to see that the Iraqi creative storytelling sector is hopefully going to continue to grow. And this is a really positive development for us and for the entire wider Iraqi economy. And then I guess the fourth update I wanted to give, because as Ashley asked what's happened, I thought I'd actually talk about two shows which we premiered, because we also, with our partner Al Shaqia, make a lot of original content, and actually the government the Prime Minister is actively interested in trying to find ways to continue to create more original content. So these two shows are a great example. So Lama Shamal premiered this year during Ramadan. It did really well, and we actually sold it into a few other markets as well. We're going to be commissioning a second season. It's a really interesting story about immigration, and it's really well made. I really encourage you to check it out. And it won 3 or 4 awards at the recent present awards that took place in Baghdad. So it's an award-winning show, and we're really quite proud of that. And then another show that we also released is Kamat Watan, which is a social satire. It's a comedy, but it's also drama, and that also did quite well. And they're two shows which really led our presence this year during the Ramadan period. So I hope that's helped. Ashley, I tried to talk about things which I felt were of interest, but also did ironically touch upon some of the themes that Professor Gunter and the others raised in their talk. So I hope that's helped, and I'm happy to take questions from anyone who has any questions you want to ask.
Well, William, I thought that really interesting, and it's quite remarkable to see the development of 1001. I mean, you've put on almost 1 million extra, subscribers since I've spoken to you, let alone become a content creator. Now, I mean, there's several things there. Firstly, in terms of content creation, is that you're going to become more like Sky in the future, where you're going to, as income allows, more of your own content? And that's the first question. The second thing is, what talent are you looking for? Are you trying to reach out to young filmmakers in Iraq?
Spot on. Yeah, both things absolutely correct, Ashley. So I will be speaking to Daniel because we are in the process of raising capital. And one of the things that we want to do, more broadly speaking, across the region, there's actually a lot of capital coming into the region, a lot of studios wanting to set up in the region because they recognize that Arabic content is probably going to be the third wave after Turkish and Korean content. So there has been a 13x increase in global interest in Arabic content since 2020. So there is a demand for Arabic content, not just in the MENA region, but globally. So we are definitely 100% looking to set up a studio to support Al Shakir and to create more original content. Now, to answer the second part of your question, what's that content going to be? Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? It can go from short form content, influencer content, youth generated content, which is, I don't want to say cheap, but it's, relatively unaffordable, inexpensive to create, all the way through to longer form content, be it Ramadan focused, be it non-Ramadan focused, because we believe that there is, as was mentioned earlier, Mesopotamia, Iraq is the oldest civilization in the world, right? So there's a huge wealth of storytelling that we can tap into. And there are, Iraq is a young country, right? In terms of, it's a young population. So digitally savvy, creative people. So our aim is to try to tap into and to help that storytelling find a voice. So, we're absolutely looking to do more to assist, not just with those stories being seen in Iraq, on our platform, of course, but also globally, whether it's through our partnerships or through other distribution avenues, which we're looking to explore. And I think this is really important because it will create jobs in the way that Professor Gunter said is needed, but it will also, that the Prime Minister is beginning to recognize that Iraq has a huge potential here in the creative storytelling space. So I think that's really important focus for us moving forward.
It's really recreating a new industry for Iraq, isn't it? That's been pretty moribund. Huge opportunity there, and also soft power too. You can influence how people receive the nation too. I think it's tremendous. While we're on the subject of content, a lot of the anxiety in the UK at the moment is around the use of AI to create new products. So, for example, if you're a music creator or a filmmaker, or an individual, the government's saying, well, yes, you can use the source material to create new forms of business, to develop the AI world. I mean, there's a sort of conflict here between creating Iraqi material content and also AI being used to exploit that. Is there any thoughts on the IP aspect of AI using source material?
Yeah, that's a good question. Funnily enough, I'm originally a lawyer by training. This morning I was actually reading up, by sheer coincidence, actually, I was actually brushing up on my intellectual property law and with a particular focus on the US. And look, the doctrine of fair use applies here. The doctrine of fair use isn't something which isn't even necessarily not finalized, but there's no right or wrong approach. So it depends on the source material. It depends on how old that material is, right? So if you're looking at, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh, right, which is the oldest story, one of the oldest stories in the world, dates back to the Sumerian civilization. Obviously, you can write until your heart's content about that because who knows who wrote that? It's 4,000 years old, right? Whereas obviously something that's written more recently, then copyright applies, and then the doctrine of fair use is a little bit more complicated, right? So I think, look, AI has a place, and I think it has a particular use. My personal view is AI is very useful as a tool, very useful as a mechanism. But when it comes to creative storytelling, you still need to find the voice of a human, frankly, at least at this stage. I think there's more than enough talented people in Iraq for us to not need to use AI to create these stories. I hope that's answered your question.
I think it's really interesting. And obviously in the UK, there's copyright law that says 70 years after the death of a writer or creative is really when it cuts off. So presumably before that, you can go for it. But, if you're McCartney and Elton John and you're getting your songs used as source material, then who owns that? It's a bit tough, isn't it? Yeah. And I guess
it used to
IP
be
in it.
Actually, and then it was increased to 70 in the late 90s as I think it was called the Mickey Mouse law, because Disney lobbied for it to be able to protect Mickey Mouse another 20 years.
And the Beatles had the same thing, I think. EMI shifted it back after the recording. Anyway, the other thing is, so just moving back to that learning platform, I think the entrepreneurship, learning, and also qualifications in Iraq are not recognized online yet. Does that matter?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess it depends on who it matters to, right? So for us, we have quite a vigorous interview process. To be frank, we have 6 interviews to join our company, right? So we're quite, we have a lot of interviews, and I wouldn't say qualifications are necessarily, where your degree is from, or if you have some certificate, isn't necessarily going to make a huge difference, right? It's about your talent, it's about your abilities. Now, what we're trying to provide with Udemy and some of the other training we provide is the talent, the access to the training that people need to be able to do their job and to do other jobs and to be able to grow as individuals and hopefully, inshallah, as entrepreneurs, right? So for us, the fact that you may or may not get a certificate, I mean, it's great. You could put it on your resume. But for me, when I look to employ someone, I don't pay a huge amount of attention to that. I pay more attention to their skills and abilities. And if I believe that they have what it takes to grow, I mean, for us, coachability and being able to grow and develop and to become the leader of tomorrow is prima facie number one thing that we're looking for, right? So
I agree with you, and I think it's a shame that Iraq doesn't recognize online qualifications, because I think they should, because it's becoming more prevalent. But actually, I used to recruit people, and I generally recruited on intelligence and attitude, actually, as long as they have the skills. And I think you're kind of mirroring that. The other thing is that on the Udemy, do you get qualifications off it? Can you get a download? So I've done a course, I've got a diploma in something. Is that?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I did one myself this morning. As I say, on the flight over from the Middle East, I did an intellectual property course because I just wanted to brush up on it. Because I went to law school a little while ago, and you get a certificate at the end that says congratulations, you've got I think it's intellectual property for entrepreneurs is the title of the course, and I got a certificate that says I've completed it. I mean, for me, I don't really need the certificate, but it's nice. It's evidence that I know what I'm talking about. At least I hope I do. So like that, I think that's a handy thing. And the thing to us, like when I talk to the team about this, they're like, this is great, because like a lot of companies don't provide training like that. And for us, we complement that with founder training and with leadership training, right? And we actually say to people, like, is there any training that you need? If Udemy doesn't have it, how can we provide that to you? I think the other thing that we're doing is, and we're kind of copying Google on this one, is we're moving towards a 20% rule for innovation and entrepreneurship. So we want our team members to spend 20% of their time doing something new and original and creative, right? I don't really care what it is, as long as it relates to the business and they're enjoying it. If we can get something out of it, fantastic. But that's how innovation comes around, right? At least the stimuli for that innovation.
Fantastic. I really love the idea that you're investing in people's capabilities, but also in Udemy, and I don't know enough about it, but we talked about entrepreneurship earlier on and some of the impediments. How can we get out to the wider population that they can get onto Udemy, they can use it through 1001 and learn more about entrepreneurship, learn more about how to be a better trained person?
Yeah.
What's the way? What's the route to market?
Yeah, good question. So for users that we've partnered with our mentor, which is an educational platform. So we've partnered with that for users. I think moving forward, if that works well, and we're in trialing phase at the moment, if that works well, I think we'll probably focus on the benefits of that in our marketing. I think we may end up speaking with schools and universities as well. I can't say it's a focus right now, actually, but it's something we're certainly open to. And if anyone on the call, I mean, just as a general point, if anyone on this call has any ideas or partnerships in mind or anything that they think we should do, I'm more than happy to hear from you. My name's, my email address is william@1001.tv, very easy email. So, I'm more than happy to explore ideas like that, because I think, we're living in an age where you can now access training and educational materials a lot more easier than you could 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? So let's try and make that as accessible as possible, because it's only through, as Professor Gunter pointed out, developing entrepreneurship skills and empowering the youth of today that Iraq can develop the kind of economy that it needs to have to be one of the leading countries in the region.
I mean, this works very well with what James was saying earlier. You need to get stories about where you are, your life, to make things better for people.
Exactly.
Frank talked about getting stories out about entrepreneurs so that people understand it. You're talking about stories about experiences and entrepreneurs and experiences of learning online. I think we just have to package up in story form everything we're doing to communicate it clearly to people, what's available to them. They're sitting there pretty much. I mean, does it cost to join Udemy? I mean, what's the deal on that?
So for 1,001, we have some tiers which are free and some tiers which are paid. So for us, some of the courses will be free and some will be paid as part of our subscription. So yeah, I mean, but as I say, if there's a demand for that, then we'll do more in that sector, and we'll partner with more educational platforms to basically give people access, so to be the conduit through which people can access these kind of materials.
This also is interesting because you've got legacy teaching going on in Iraq, which may be struggling. You've got people that can't necessarily, I think Raid from Sabis will be talking about having online courses for schools because you don't necessarily get hold of physics teachers when you need them. And so therefore you're more curating and you're supporting teachers, pupils to learn more. I think the whole way things are moving is that, companies might become the new educators, or your platforms might become the new educators, and actually leapfrog what's actually available through governmental systems.
Yeah, because ultimately, I like to say that, entrepreneurs, kind of, no disrespect to the government, but I think they probably have their finger on the pulse probably slightly more than some bureaucrat who maybe doesn't. So I'd like to think we're a little bit more agile. I may be wrong on that, but so we should have more of an idea, because we hear a lot more and we have a lot more access to data, I guess. So we're a little bit more agile in terms of our ability to interpret what people are looking for and what people want to see and what they want to do. So hopefully that will help us to provide better training and materials and to help people access what they need. But I mean, as I say, at the moment, the training focus is more internal than external, although our mentor is someone that we're partnering with. Because we view training our staff as a key priority, training our team and the future entrepreneurs as a key priority. But I mean, if there is a real interest and passion for more to be done for our users, then happy days. We're really keen to explore that opportunity.
This is what I like about the private sector, in that you can go ahead, deliver things to the market that people want and need at significantly less cost. People can do it for themselves, whether it's what you're doing, whether it's what Daniel's doing, almost for free. You can source investment opportunities, or whether, Ramin's doing pharmaceutical sourcing, people can sign up to the system. And that way you can get around the legacy, the bureaucrats, get around potential corruption, and just go for it. And presenting a new form of economy and social living for people that, say, James was talking about the experiential economy. It could all be done pretty much without government touching the sides.
Exactly. I mean, I had some technical problems at the start of the call, so I only caught the end of James's presentation, but I think he touched upon some of these really important points about storytelling and the creative economy, and I think that's critical.
I think on that note, it's been terrifically interesting, William, and you're kind of pioneering a lot of things here, not just in Iraq, but internationally. And partnerships are key. What do you need most next?
Good question. Partnerships, as you said, that's key for us. So partners who are either interested in our content. So for example, compounds, schools is something I'd love to explore, hotels, people who have content. We're really open to new ideas, to other avenues to expand the business, so we're trying to do something that's never really been done before due to rampant piracy. So, thankfully, hopefully, inshallah, that's going to be changing soon. So, you know, we're really keen. We're a partnership focused business. We have a partner focused ethos. So, yeah, if anyone is here and has an idea or something that they want to explore, you know, drop me a line, William at 1001.tv, and more than happy to jump on a call and to explore synergies that we can work together on.
And I think also, you know, Mohsen is one of your partners is going to be on our platform tomorrow, talking about growth and diversity in Iraq. And I hope to see you in the Mansion House. It's going to be a big conference, and we've got a lot of ministers coming. So really pleased. And William, thank you very much for helping sponsor us, keeping us going, and at the same time sharing fantastic information. And with that, I'd really like to thank everybody. I found this so interesting. I'm going to watch it all again. Effectively, James Wallman, thank you so much. WXO, World Experience Organization, looking at the experiences and stories. Professor Frank Gunter on his highlighting entrepreneurship issues and opportunities in Iraq. His report will be coming soon. To Raman Salihi from SoftCell, who's really looking at pharmaceutical markets and how to deliver platforms and efficiencies there. To Daniel Sawko from ShipShape, who's helping entrepreneurs find investment simply and easily. And finally, to William again. Always a pleasure. Thank you all very much. See you at Christmas when we'll be in Basra. Yes, hot news. We're going to be in Basra on the 4th of December. First Southern Iraq conference there. So that would be a big one. Look forward to it, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
See you.